All right, this is Bob Maloney from MyMMAnews.com and USKA Fight Sports, and I have the pleasure of talking to Madelyn Grimaldi tonight. Madelyn will be traveling from Rhode Island to Pennsylvania for a Muay Thai rules kickboxing event. Madelyn, before we even get into all that, listen, it's been a long time because of the pandemic and nobody's been really able to have any live action. So tell me how you've been, what you've been up to.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, this is so exciting. I'm so happy that we're talking about this. I'm so happy that we're talking about events going on again. It's been a long year and a half. I am fortunate enough to be engaged to somebody that is in the kickboxing world, Ross Levine. So we were able to work together a lot and stay busy throughout this year and a half. Hitting pads together, doing drills together, that sort of thing. It was really tough to have our gym close. I mean, our gym was probably closed for about 3 months and then slowly started opening again. But for anybody that's in the martial arts world, they know how difficult it was to stay sharp, to stay fit. And the past couple months of, the restrictions getting so much better, it's like a breath of fresh air. I'm just so excited to be back in the game.
Excellent. Well, listen, I was had the pleasure. Ross did fight at USKA Fight Sports before, and the one thing I learned about Ross is he isn't just let me go in there and use my brunt force and win a fight. He was very much a tactician and almost a scientist, and I actually really enjoyed watching him fight in the way he actually let the guy throw himself out, and then when the window opened, it was like good night. He's really impressive. Do you guys talk about that a lot about the strategy too? I mean, because let's face it. I mean, fighting is let's very physical. You got to work. You got to work hard. Keep yourself in shape. But there's such a mental angle of it, and that part of the sport, the technique. If you guys go out to dinner, is that what you're talking about?
So we have a great balance of being teammates, him being my coach, and then being husband and wife. But you're right, he is a calculated assassin when it comes to fighting, and I really admire how smart he is when it comes to fighting. So I feel very fortunate enough to have a teacher like that in my life. And as I've grown in the martial arts world, it's become, one of my main focuses is to develop a better fight IQ. And I think that really is what sets apart fighters in the ring, is between the brawlers and the true martial artists. And Ross and I really focus on being the best martial artists that we can be. And not only do we show up, but we like to show up. You know what I mean? So we don't like to do, brawler. I tend to brawl sometimes, I won't lie. But we try to show our intellect when it comes to fighting, mixed in with all the combinations that people see all the time. So you might hear my cat joining the conversation soon. But yeah, it's really I feel fortunate to have a teacher like Ross, because my fight IQ is just jumping leaps and bounds.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? That's something you guys bond over, I'm sure. Well, tell me about this fight, okay? Kelly Marin. I mean, do you know anything about her? I know you just told me you just decided on Muay Thai rules, which is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
what have you been doing what's going on in camp? How you approaching this fight, and what are we going to see?
So originally, we were in the works of fighting her teammate, and unfortunately that didn't work out. So Kelly was like, you know what, I got this, I'll take it. And so big shout out to her for taking this fight. Really excited about that. Um, on paper, oh, here's Piper.
There we go. That's okay.
On
Special guest.
paper, yeah, exactly. On paper, I have a lot more experience than her in the ring, but I try not to take that into consideration, especially on the amateur level, because you really never know a person's talent until they're in front of you. So, I did manage to see a fight of hers, and we have been, coming up with a game plan on how we're going to win and that sort of thing. But I think the biggest key is, never underestimate your opponent. And saying that, I plan on going in there and making some fireworks happen. So
Right. Now,
we have a great plan ahead.
you've had a few fights now. I'm assuming Ross is in your corner. Do you hear him during the round? Can you? Because I know that he's, like I said, he's always watching and looking for openings. Do you actually? Because listen, you have to concentrate on your opponent, but do you hear him when you're in there?
So it's a really interesting dynamic. Now, I train out of Pride Martial Arts in Kingston, Rhode Island, and my coach, Sensei Andrew Cornell, is a mastermind. He's wonderful. It's who I learned everything from, and that's where I fell in love with martial arts. Eventually, I met Ross, and eventually, he was in my corner. But for the first half of my career, it was always Sensei Andrew. So I can hear his voice through anything. Like, we are able to have that connection, which is great. That's, the type of connection you can only hope to have with your coach. And then once you add your fiance into the corner, now you have a couple voices talking to you and you're like, oh crap, what's going on? So there was this little shift that happened, but Ross and my coach, so very close. That's Ross's coach as well. And they have developed this dynamic of, one person will say one thing, one person will say the other. And they're so in tune that usually they're seeing the same things. So honestly, I hear both of their voices easily. I mean, a lot of times I don't even hear the crowd. A lot of times I tend to get tunnel vision for fights. But luckily their voices get through that.
That's awesome. Awesome. Listen, before we go, once again, we're Madelyn Grimaldi. She's coming down from Rhode Island to Pennsylvania for a Muay Thai fight at USKA Fight Sports. Give some love or some shout outs to, some of your training partners or any sponsors. Anybody you want to say thanks to who's going to be rooting for you to have your arm raised in victory.
Absolutely. A huge shout out to Pride Martial Arts in Kingston, Rhode Island. Thank you to my teammates, to my coaches, Andrew Cornell, his wife, and my nutritionist, Trisha Cornell. And I'm so lucky to be around the best on the East Coast. I go to Hard Knocks Muay Thai in Boston. I go to Lausanne MMA in Massachusetts as well. And I'm just surrounded by excellent people, fighters and people in general. So thank you to everybody that's helped me on this journey, and I can't wait to bring the W home.
Madelyn, once again, thanks for your time. Have a safe trip down and have a great fight week. I don't know if you have to cut any weight. If you do, take it easy on Ross, please. I know those times can be a little bit sometimes temperamental for everybody who's got to cut a little bit weight when they're hungry, So
no promises. No promises.
All right, Madelyn Grimaldi, once again, appreciate your time. Have a great one.